Me, oh my goodness gracious. It is that time of the week again, folks. It is time for the Valley of Spirits. However, it's just me. That's right, we have no Nick this episode, so I guess we're going to see how this goes. Stay along for the ride. It may move a little faster. I tried to kind of make sure we had enough topics because we're not really going to have a whole lot to discuss because I'm just going to kind of talk about them. So I do appreciate you guys joining us today. I do have a pretty cool episode coming up for you. Nick will be coming back next week. He had to travel for work, so he'll be back with us here soon. I'm going to be talking about Plunderstorm coming back around, sounds like, at the 10.07 patch. I'm going to talk about a couple of the new things coming with that patch, maybe new, not so new, for example. I'm going to talk about the lag that has continued to plague the raid, and maybe even some cross-faction hope in our future. And then in the Tavern Talk, I'm going to talk on my opinion about the catalyst and PvP versus PvE items and what you should and shouldn't do, and I'm going to kind of talk about my opinion on that. I'm going to go a little bit more in depth with Plunderstorm and my opinions and experiences from last time. And then I'm also going to go over some comments from the Brutosaur video. So pretty interesting. So stick with me as I continue to try to do this. I guess I'll get started with what I got up to this week. I did end up doing a couple of very low keys on the mage and, like 2s, 4s. We were hanging out with a couple of the guildies on guild night, and we were just trying to get a couple of keys down, make us feel good about ourselves, do some, some good murder, for example. I did do a lot of PvP on the mage, which is part of why I'm bringing up in the Tavern Talk section. I'm a little bit torn on how I feel about the catalyst system and not being able to get PvP items from the vault, and talk a little bit about my opinion on that balance and things like that. A lot of that this week on rated battlegrounds, and I did Karak's Revenge, so I'll talk about that all in the Tavern Talk. But moving on with what do we have coming up this week. So Darkmoon Fair, it'll actually already have started by the time you're hearing this. It began on Sunday the 3rd, and it ends on Saturday, November 9th. So you get one whole week. You can do things like stack up your 20th anniversary experience bonus on top of the Darkmoon Fair bonus, and you can level really quickly with this if that's a method you want to use. You should, even if you're doing like time walking dungeons or whatever to level, because you can stack them on top of each other. We also have the time walking event will continue, so we will continue being able to do the classic raid and the classic dungeons and time walking. I'm not sure exactly what they're going to have the quest be because we haven't seen a full cycle of them yet, but pretty excited to get back in and do some more classic dungeons. So I thought this was kind of interesting. They are ending the Arena Skirmish bonus event, but they're not really bringing anything else in, which is kind of, I guess there's already a lot going on. 20th anniversary, Darkmoon Fair, right? So they don't want to drag you away from those to do skirmishes. I see that kind of. So then we have the Gravity Lapse is the PvP brawl for this week, and no more Arathi Blizzard. We do have WoW's 20th anniversary still going on. Remember, that'll be going on until January 7th. We have Hollow's End. That is going on until November 8th. So getting into our first topic of the week is going to be Plunderstorm coming back potentially in 10.07, some whispers. And they're also going to be including a brand new practice mode, so find your feet. Although it's not yet testable on the PTR, we can see that the new mode along solo and duo play, which presumably allows players to familiarize themselves with the game mode's unique controls and interface. Funny enough, the practice mode is using the trios icon, and the 3-person queue no longer appears to be available. Added shortly after launch, Plunderstorm this past March, trios created a new dynamic for more group-oriented players, though the additional format also further segmented the player base. I'm not exactly sure what they're going to do with this practice mode. I hope that they make it to where you can actually get rewards from doing the practice mode still. I don't know, maybe at a lesser amount or maybe much less, because I don't want to see people run in there and just only play the practice mode, because then nobody's ever going to get into a Plunderstorm lobby, right? It's like I don't know if you guys played as much as I did last time around, but trying to get in at like when you're staying up real late because you have the next day off on a Saturday or whatever. If you're playing at like 3 a.m., there's like nobody. Sometimes you just sit in that lobby almost forever, just waiting for people to show up. There's not an enormous amount of the player base, I think, plays this as much. I hope they do another tournament. It was really fun watching, like, Peekaboo kill Asmongold and stuff. So I really hope they do a tournament again. But I'm pretty excited for it to come back. But the practice mode seems cool, especially for people to kind of understand how the spells work rather than just getting murked at the beginning of the game every time, like Fortnite, right? They have a couple of new and returning rewards, but you can also get a void version of the Plunderstorm transmog, like the pirate one. So pretty exciting, but a lot of the rewards are coming back, and you'll be able to buy them for currency, like your gold that you actually collect up on your account now. You'll be able to buy those rewards with it. So it'll be interesting. I think that's a much better way to do the system, you know, having it tied to gold, or, well, it's not gold on your account, it's plunder, excuse me, that kind of gold. So having it tied to that kind of currency allows you to choose what you want to play and how much of it you want to play, what's worth it to you, for example. So I'm pretty excited. I'm going to grind the heck out of it. I got several 100,000 plunder last time, so I played it a bunch. And so they temporarily canceled Warband currency in the live game, which is kind of interesting. It is because people were attempting to lag out and exploit bosses for resets and things like that, to skip, either to, in some cases, skip through a phase, in other cases to reset the fight for free. But it ended up lagging people out, and so they just disabled like your Warband transferable currencies. Like if you wanted to trade honor from one character to another, then that's disabled at this time. I assume they're coming out with a fix here shortly, but at the time of recording, it's actually still disabled. I mean, with this patch, they also talk about how they have continued hotfixes coming out for the Nerub-ar Palace Raid. I just really don't even know how that works, or how it gets programmed like that, or how does Blizzard pull from the server so hard when you're transferring stuff from your other characters? I just think that's really weird, because if you do it during a fight or during a raid, you can lag people out, which is really, really weird. So they're working on fixing that. There's big latency issues in Nerub-ar Palace still, and they've talked about it a bunch. But they do talk about in their blog post that they rebuilt part of WoW's backend infrastructure for this. So this is actually interesting. We've been talking about how they're going to need to either continue to revamp the engine piece by piece like they have been, or they are going to have to just restart, WoW 2, right? So they're making strides towards that, trying to make their client a bit better and a bit more usable. So we do have racial abilities getting buffed, which is pretty exciting. I'm not going to read through them here because there's a bunch of them, but they're all buffs, and here are the races affected. Draenei, High Mountain Tauren, Lightforged Draenei, Mag'har Orcs, Nightborn, Void Elves, Valpyrian, Worgen, and Zandalari Trolls. They all have buffs to their racials, so take a look. Some of them are cooldowns, some of them are effectiveness, so definitely take a look there. I just thought that was pretty exciting. They're trying to bring up the racials to kind of all have their own little competitive quirk or whatever, so very exciting. So guys, there is cross-faction hope. I've been preaching for this. There is some reason, I think, some rules they made, some arbitrary code. There's got to be some dumb reason why they still don't let us do cross-faction everything. But now cross-faction groups can now queue for dungeons. The dungeon will require a fully pre-made group, and party members who leave will not be replaced. So what that means is you can queue for like a Time Walking Classic, for example, or any Time Walking dungeon, or queue for a heroic dungeon, for example. You can do that now as long as you have 5. You have to have 5 of you to do it, though, which is dumb, but baby steps, right? Baby steps. Soon we'll be able to all play together. So I was going to talk a little bit about the esports that happened during this week. At the time of recording, they started the MDI. We're actually in the middle of it. It hasn't started yet today, so I haven't been able to watch it. As of the time of recording, Perplexed and Missed Count are in the upper semis, and then in the lower semis, we have Team Name and Polish Mountain, which Polish Mountain looks like a freight train. I'm kind of interested to see if they can pull through and get up, but Team Name took them down last time. Perplexed and Miscount they're dynamite. Watching their runs is insane. I'm not going to take away from it too much. You definitely should watch some of the runs, and if you go to the Warcraft YouTube, you can skim through and watch the parts and what dungeons you want, right? They've already had a couple of runs that were within admin, they have had the admin come in and measure the total time and then figure out who won. And it's been close battles, exciting strategies being used, lots of different comps. It is finally starting to be narrowed down to things like Shaman, for example. So it is coming out, but there still are some other comps. We got to see a Prot Warrior come out early. There was some Prot Paladin a little bit in there. So some exciting stuff. Take a look at it for sure, especially if you're a druid. There's all kinds of Darude Sandstorms up in there. There was Ferals. There's all kinds of stuff in there. So that's why I was excited to watch it. There's definitely a bunch more class diversity than I've seen in a minute, which speaks that to our groups out there, we should probably be less picky on who we let into our groups. Anyway, that's going to be it for the news section of the Valley of Spirits. Thank you guys for trudging through with me on my first solo episode and hopefully my last. Goodness, Nick. Please come back soon. He will be, actually. He's coming back just a couple of days after I record, and then he'll have his hand in this too. So I'm very excited for him to work on it as well, and then hear me talk to myself. Thank you for tuning in to another exciting episode of the Valley of Spirits. We're your hosts, or Jordan and Nick. Well, Nick will be back shortly, excuse me. Your go-to Horde players. Join us in Dornegal on the Malgana server and look up our guild, the Electric Boogaloo, for some epic adventures. Stay connected with us on social media. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, or X as it's known these days, by searching for the Valley of Spirits podcast. Don't miss an episode and follow us on our Spotify or anywhere you find podcasts. Check out our YouTube for additional content not found on our podcast platforms. Until next time, may your quest be glorious and your loot be plentiful. And as always, for the Horde.